Good, my friends. This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Marc Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Thrilled to have you guys with us, as is always the case. We appreciate you. Hello to everyone on the YouTube page. Great to see you. We're on YouTube as well. Just go to your YouTube app, the Fan Upstate. We're right there. You'll see Diesel and I in all of our glory rolling up. I don't know how Diesel's getting away with a T-shirt today. This Florida boy is freezing cold. Freezing cold. Mild, they tell me. The winters are mild. You know, they told you the chicken wing is mild too before you realize there's ghost pepper in it. Okay?
We had ghost pepper wings on Saturday night. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Oh, it's mild, they say. So
starts slow, builds, and gets worse and worse and worse as you go through it.
The chicken wings are mild. The chicken wings are mild. The winter here is mild. Right. Remind me never to listen to your mild again. Heard from Beth Bibb, who sent us an email. She says, Mark, a million miles away. Loved it. Thanks for the recommendation. Love your show too. Skol Vikings. Diesel, what does Skol mean?
It's a Viking term.
Am I saying that right? Skol?
Yeah, Skol.
Okay.
I think it's like cheers. It's used to express friendly feelings towards one's companions before drinking. So it's cheers.
Okay.
It's cheers in ancient Norse. I don't know.
There you go. Okay. So, folks, we are jam-packed on a Monday edition of the show. All right. We've got all that you want on Clemson and South Carolina. All right. We've got Jim Szoke joining us at 3:40 p.m. Yet another Carolina Panthers loss is in the books. We've got the most unlikable people in college football. Who are the most unlikable personalities in college football? All right. And I put this together from a different standpoint. All right. I'll tell you what's interesting about that topic, Diesel. If you make it most hated guys in college football, that means that other people hate them, but you don't necessarily hate them. They're just most hated. But when you say most unlikable, that's a level below most hated, right? Because, you know, hated just means people hate you, whether they have reason to hate you or not, right? Unlikable means, to me, that cuts deeper than most hated, right? Like some would say, I would like to be the most hated sports radio show host in the upstate, but like most unlikable, ooh. I mean, if you're unlikable, how did you ever find a wife? You know, how did you ever date anybody if you're unlikable? So we'll do that at 4 o'clock p.m. today. We've got a coach's hot seat in our unique Offsides way coming your way at 4:20 p.m. Chris Phillips joins us this afternoon. We've got the top 5 at 5. We've got Cole Bryson on a whole host of upsets over the high school football weekend. We've got Mark and Diesel's playoff 4, the 4 teams that ultimately will make the college football playoff this year. And we have you here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere. Great to hear from you. Great to have you on the show this afternoon. Let us open with this. I got a text from Diesel on Saturday that implied that Clemson was in trouble against Georgia Tech. Yes, this is.
No, I never implied that they were in trouble. I read the fact that they were they had 7 plays from scrimmage with only 8 yards.
Yeah,
and I said, this may not be going as well as you think it is.
Yeah. He goes, I'm thinking they're not back, Clemson. I'm thinking they're not back. Well, who knows if they're back, right? We don't know. But we did say last week, folks, that in our opinion, Clemson had flipped a switch. They had leveled up. They had taken the next step. They appeared as though, right, that at home anyway, that they were riding a wave of momentum, that they really cared, that they had, really taken a jump against Notre Dame. And that kind of jump doesn't happen overnight, and it also doesn't dissipate overnight. And did we ever see that against Georgia Tech? How many of you guys did I warn last week when we were doing the Upset Picks Challenge? How many of you did I warn? Don't pick Georgia Tech over Clemson. That's a waste of a pick. It's a waste of a pick. And yet we had double-digit offsiders pick Georgia Tech over Clemson as their upset pick. Your hatred of Clemson led you astray. And even though the unbiased hosts of this show, Mark and Diesel, tried to warn you, you foolishly took them anyway. For shame, for shame, for shame. I will not understand the how or why of that, but gosh, folks, Clemson right now looks very, very much like a top 25 team. They outgained Georgia Tech 465 to 254. Now, Georgia Tech's defense has struggled the entire season. It's the offense that was something to behold. It's the offense that had kept them in every single game. Oh, Marc Ryan, look at this Yellow Jacket offense. They have scored 40 points plus in their last two games, 45 plus points in their last two games. Clemson is in trouble, you said. I chortled at that. I laughed at that because defense is the great equalizer. And how about these stats, right? Only two players in college football this year to have 500 rushing yards, over 2,000 yards passing, over 20 touchdown passes. Who are they? Haynes King and Jaden Daniels. Well, what happens when you put Haynes King up against a great defense? Here's what happens, all right? Haynes King, 500 yards rushing in 9 games this year. So he's averaging 60 yards plus rushing a game. Against Clemson, wait for it, -3 rushing yards. Oh, that's so impressive, isn't it? Haynes King passing, one of only 2 players to hit those milestones, right? 13 for 31 through the air, 129 yards passing, 2 touchdown passes, but 4, count them, 4 interceptions. 4. A QBR, wait for it, of 10. His QBR in the game was 10. How about that? And look, Clemson is coaching Cade Klubnik a lot like they were coaching DJ Uiagalelei. They're kind of coaching him through a game manager phase, but Cade Klubnik is now playing well at home in that game manager phase. 205 yards passing, 23 of 34, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick, and a QBR of 75.2. Now, remember, a QBR of 50 is average. Haynes King had a 10. Cade Klubnik had a 75.2, which in an offense, admittedly, that is designed around limiting mistakes for him, is great. He's playing great in this risk-averse offense. Then you had Phil Maffa and Will Shipley go for a combined 172 yards en route to 260 yards rushing, 5.9 yards a carry. And Clemson made Georgia Tech look like the minor league team that they are. I was getting Georgia Tech fans coming at me last week saying, whoa, whoa, whoa. Where are the Yellow Jackets in your top 5 of the ACC? You see, I do these college football Saturday takeaways on Sunday morning, and I do that as a tip of the cap to my guy Booger McFarland, who used to do those. And I'll tell you what, I didn't hear from a single Yellow Jacket fan yesterday. I said, beat Clemson, you'll be in the top 5 in the ACC, but you got to beat Clemson to do it. Amazing how they just go away, how they just disappear, how there's no one yelling at me anymore to make sure you have your Yellow Jackets in the top 5. Folks, Clemson is peaking at the right time. All right. And you might remember, if you watch the show Game of Thrones, Arya Stark, when she was fending off a villain that was hell-bent on killing her family, all right, she said, not today. to all of those people who announced that the wheels were coming off for Clemson, I say to you, not today. Dabo Swinney has his Tigers poised to finish in the top 25 this season. They've got 2 games remaining against the Carolinas. All right. They play the Carolinas, North and South, and only neither one plays on both sides of the ball. Both of those teams play only on one side of the ball. And if you spell out North Carolina, and if you spell out South Carolina, is there any D to be found when you spell those names out? No, I don't see a D in either name. I don't see a D in either game. And so I like Clemson, frankly, to win both games between them to end the year. A lot of people were delighting in the demise of Clemson. And yet again, one of Dabo's best traits, circling the wagons, getting them to play their butts off, all right, even though their goals at the beginning of the year were off the table. I know win the state is one of them. I know they want to win the state. I know they can still win the state, right? But come on. We identified success at the beginning of this season as making the college football playoff. They can't do that. Winning the ACC this year wouldn't have been good enough. They can't do that, right? If you said at the beginning of the year, Clemson is in the top 25 again, right? That's nothing to celebrate. But you can't say fully the wheels fell off for Clemson with that being the case. The wheels fell off for South Carolina to get them to 2-6. The wheels fell off for the Florida Gators on Saturday. Diesel, for the first time in the history of the Florida Gator program, they gave up 700 yards of offense. Jaden Daniels had 606 yards of offense by himself. That's the greatest offensive output by a single player in SEC football history.
I think the most fight you put up was that one play off to the sidelines.
Yeah, that's
where people
right.
were throwing fists.
That's right. That's right. Look, you could have fooled me if you were telling me Clemson is checked out of this season. Could have fooled me. You get them in front of Death Valley. You get them in front of that crowd and the intensity. Could have fooled me by people saying Clemson is checked out of the season. And while I'm here, can I just say, did you see that catch by Tyler Brown of Greenville? Tyler Brown of Greenville High School. This ball, Diesel, was caught. That ball was caught, okay, for a touchdown by true freshman Tyler Brown and his band of renown. Okay, absolutely, positively incredible. And if there's one thing we can say about this season, it's that Tyler is the MVP of the 2023 Tigers. It's just that I don't know which Tyler it is. Is it Tyler Brown or is it Tyler from Spartanburg? Because the more that I watch this Clemson team and I consider the when behind when they have taken this leap, you trace it right back to Tyler from Spartanburg.
Dabo Swinney's like,
this morning at 9:10 a.m., I activated myself.
That's right. Tyler from Spartanburg hit the activation button.
I love my job.
Tyler Brown making miracle catches. Clemson looking the way we thought they might look at the beginning of the season. You know, if they had only started the season like this, but it just, Cade Klubnik, new starter, new offense. It took more time than folks thought. Guys like Lawton Swan told me that he thought Clemson was close, and I laughed at him. I still don't know if they're close. Kelly Ford will join us on Wednesday, Diesel, and I think he's going to tell us that there's less than a 50-50 shot that Clemson will run the table. And they just have 2 games left. North Carolina, South Carolina. He's going to tell us they got a 62% chance to beat North Carolina, 69% chance to beat South Carolina. Combine those 2 odds through a little ditty called binomial probability. He's going to tell us that there's less than a 50-50 shot Clemson will run the table. But man, does this look like a totally different team? And you know who knows it? The odds makers know it. The odds makers know it. The odds makers made Clemson a 14-plus point favorite against Georgia Tech. You right? The odds makers are making Clemson a massive favorite week in and week out. They're a favorite right now, about a touchdown over North Carolina. North Carolina is 8-2 and in the top 25. Clemson is 6-4 outside of the top 25. Okay? 6-4 and unranked, 8-2 and ranked. Vegas is saying Clemson is significantly better. Significantly better. But what say you guys about that? What say you?
Mongo says Clemson fans are close to their cousins.
Ooh. All right.
Solid burn, Mongo.
All right. Coming up next on the show, we, my friends, flip the script over to the Gamecocks, who had something to be proud of themselves. I'll tell you why when Offsides continues. Right after this, we are the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Marc Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides, Marc Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. A quick check on the carpro.com text line. Great to see you guys lighting us up there. Brian from Easley. Hi, guys. I heard that Mark is taking the A&M coaching job. Brian, I like my life. Why would I do something like that? Why would I do something like that? Why do you want to wish that pain on me, taking the A&M Texas job? Jimbo Fisher fired. Why? Because he's making twice as much as Kevin Sumlin to produce the same results that Kevin Sumlin got. That's going to be a problem. Can you believe they're eating $76.8 million? This is a totally different world of college football, man.
I remember asking, and you could probably pull his name out of the ether, the Texas A&M beat writer that we had on at the beginning of the season. I remember asking him if this is not going to work out, will A&M make the same mistake again and throw a ridiculous amount of money at someone? And he said, oh, yeah, definitely. It's going to happen again. They're going to throw a tremendous amount of money at the wrong guy. They will not learn their lesson. They will make the same mistake again. You know why? Because they got it. They got the cash.
Still, I don't think any of us realized just how hot his seat was. You know, I thought it was possible at the end of the year, not right now. But you know what they say, Diesel, and Zach Arnett, Mississippi State lost his gig as well. You know, I understand why. People say, you know, if you know it must be done eventually, it needs to be done immediately, right? What must be done eventually should be done immediately. In other words, if you're in a relationship and you know that she's not the right one for you or he's not the right one for you, stop spinning your wheels. End it. Move on. Move on. I was dating a girl in college for 3 months. Okay, 3 months. She said something I perceived as racist, right? Like she said something along the lines of, you know, I don't even want to go there, but she like it was hanging out or spending time in the home with certain people, and I deemed that to be racist. And I thought about it overnight, ended it the next day. You know, it's like what must be done eventually should be done immediately, right? You know, Jimbo Fisher's not the guy. Why wait? You know, Zach Arnett's not the guy. Why wait? Why do that? Tiger fan Clint says, I don't blame Diesel a bit for that take. If we are honest, most of us felt the same way at that point. Tiger fan Clint, I didn't. You guys thought Georgia Tech was going to win that game? Texter says, you literally told everybody to stop picking Georgia Tech. You're not right often, Marc Ryan, but every once in a while, just kidding. You're right more than wrong. Yeah, the wrong goes viral. The rights get crickets, right? But we are right more than we are wrong.
Move out of here.
Texter says South Carolina has won the game this year, has won their last game this year, and I'm a Carolina fan. I'm not sure what that means, Texter.
Our fans suck.
He's trying to say that South Carolina is not going to win another game this year.
Oh, they
said we've won our last game this year.
Oh, and we're
going to lose the last two.
Oh, I see that. I see what he
Our
said. Okay.
fans suck.
Okay. You used the wrong there, Texter, and that threw me. That threw me, okay? Texter says, Mark, Clemson has the number 6th ranked defense in the country. The Gamecocks haven't played anyone with a higher ranked defense this year. Let's get to Dewey in Spartanburg, who has been hanging patiently on the line. Dewey, what's good, brother? How are you?
I'm good. You need to stop talking trash about the Gamecocks.
Or else what?
They won against Vanderbilt, and they're going to win against the next 2 teams, and then go 12-0 next year. Shane Beamer forever.
I think we've got this guy now. Thank you for the call, Dewey. I think we've got this guy now that's trolling us, Diesel. At least he's trolling us.
Well, Shane Beamer forever is 100% going to be a drop. Thank you, Dewey.
Yeah, Shane Beamer forever. Yeah, you're right. Good call. Good call. Thank you for giving us something. So we got this dude who we think is a cloaked Clemson fan who calls in and just extols false virtues of Shane Beamer, right? He's the man. If he can't do it, nobody can. And we heard from him a couple times last week. Dewey and Spartanburg making his voice heard. You guys, you Gamecock fans don't feel that way about Beamer, do you? You don't really feel that way.
It's amazing how fast the shine has fallen off that apple.
Well, it is.
For not a I wouldn't say a large percentage. I wouldn't say a majority of the fan base is out on Shane Beamer, but a significant portion, 25%, 25% are already saying, I don't think this guy's going to work out. He sucks. We got to get him out of here. We got to move on to somebody else.
Well, let's focus on this. South Carolina put together its best performance of the season on Saturday. All right. Best performance of the season. In a game that Vegas gave very similar odds to South Carolina for the Vanderbilt and Jacksonville State. The odds for the Gamecocks to win those games was virtually identical. The lines were virtually identical. South Carolina showed a major step up last week. Yeah, it is Vanderbilt. Okay, I know it was just Vandy, but it was also their first complete performance of the season. All season. All right? They didn't look like that against Furman. Seriously, look at the score. 47-21, 47-6 against an SEC team. So I give South Carolina a lot of credit for putting together a total team performance. What did they do on Saturday that they hadn't done previously? They ran the football. They stopped the run. They played very, very, very good defense. Who had South Carolina allowing single-digit points on their bingo card?
This is a great day, isn't it, fellas?
It was a great day, and they did it. 487 yards of offense to 234. They outrushed Vanderbilt 136-130. Vanderbilt came in. The best unit on Vanderbilt's team was the passing attack, right? It's sad that this is the best, but they were 63rd in America in passing. Vanderbilt was their best unit. Okay. And they passed for 104 yards against South Carolina's defense in this game. I'm not sure if Clayton White wants to have a how you like me now moment flex against Vanderbilt. I'm not sure if that's really going to go over too well, but South Carolina played really well in that game. And they've got Kentucky coming to town this week. And folks, I think the wrong team is favored. Kentucky, the line I saw was 2.5 points. Kentucky's favored by. I think the wrong team is favored. Kentucky's coming off a beatdown at the hands of Alabama. They're battered and bruised. They don't have really much else to play for. They're going on the road to South Carolina, playing for their bowl lives. Spurred on by the energy of this crowd. Didn't seem like there were many at Williams-Brice Stadium on Saturday. Diesel, you know why. It was 58 degrees. They don't, Gamecocks go back into their hen house when it's drizzling and when it's 58 degrees. They don't like to be seen out in that kind of weather. But South Carolina, with or without their fans, controlled that game beginning to end and showed themselves to be significantly. I mean, you didn't know that before that game, did you? You didn't know that South Carolina was significantly above the bottom of the SEC. Florida beat Vanderbilt 37-17 by 20 South Carolina beat them by 41, like a drum. So I give the Gamecocks a ton of credit for putting together their first complete performance of the entire year. Well done. Bravo. And I think South Carolina and Kentucky are trending in totally opposite directions. If you asked me a month ago, I said, no chance. Where is Kentucky sound and solid on the lines? Offensive line, defensive line. Where is South Carolina weak on the lines? Offensive line and defensive line. They don't have it up front to beat Kentucky. That's what I would have told you a month ago. Now you got a team suddenly finding its run defense, suddenly finding its run offense, protecting Spencer Rattler well enough to move the ball through the air. You got an efficient offense. You've got an improved defensive effort. All right. That could springboard South Carolina to a matchup with Clemson with bowl eligibility on the line.
Mongo says, Mark is such a Gamecock homer. I like this trend out of you, Mongo. Anytime he talks about any team.
Yeah.
He called you a Furman homer. He's called you a Clemson homer. He's called you a Gamecock homer.
I like that, Mongo. I can deal with that. You know, it's better than everyone thinking I hate their team, right?
Bongo, I can't remember his name.
Diesel, I got to tell you this today. I mean, this just goes to show you that you get this from all angles, right? Like I tweeted this yesterday about the Gators. I said I've been preaching patience to Gator fans about the Billy Napier regime. I can do so no longer. It's one thing to lose, but the last 2 weeks, Gator Nation has been embarrassed and humiliated. And I said Napier no longer has 4 years. It's 8 wins next season or else. You can't embarrass the fan base. You can't, did you see what Arkansas did this weekend? Arkansas got boat raced at home by Auburn, who also sucks. Okay? Arkansas lost to Auburn 42-10. Arkansas, without another win in the SEC, beat Florida last week. That's an embarrassment. Then Florida gives up a school record number of yards, 700 yards. I don't give a rip how good Jaden Daniels is. Let me tell you something about this Florida defensive effort. They gave up 11.3 yards a play. A few years ago, Florida played at LSU when Joe Burrow was the quarterback. They gave up 9.8 yards a play. And I said, I hope I never see a worse defensive performance in my life. 2023 said, hold my beer. Here it is. It's worse. One thing to lose. You can't embarrass the fan base. You can't look like you didn't practice or prepare for the game all week long. So I said that, right? And I got a Gator, somebody on Twitter, saying to me after I say that, Diesel, Napier's got to win 8 games next year. He goes, and you are? ? Okay. Right? I mean, so you hear that from Gator fans, and I'm a Gator alum. You hear that from Gamecock fans, hear that from Clemson fans, right? Happy to be a Furman homer. Homer. Texter says Florida still scored a lot of points. Yeah. What does it mean? That we're the biggest loser? Mark, my girls just said go Dins. Great win for the Furman Paladins over the weekend as well. Their first outright SoCon championship since 1990. Mongo says the caller has to be Johnny Carrots in disguise. Ooh, that's an interesting subplot.
That was buffoonery. That was complete and total buffoonery.
Mongo also says the 25% who want Beamer out are morons.
They have a hard time knowing doo-doo from apple butter.
Texter says, I trust in Beamer's tears. Guys, I don't know if I do not believe I shared this with you yet, but I do have my year 3 kind of report card for Shane Beamer to share with you. Okay, my year 3 report card. What Beamer is doing well and where he needs to improve. Okay, now, if you are a Gamecock fan, spread the gospel of offsides that this is very, very fair. Especially if you actually believe it's fair. Spread the gospel. What Shane Beamer is doing well. Number 1, culture building. Culture building. Creating an atmosphere of accountability. You're not hearing of Gamecocks left and right running afoul of the law, of the program, late hits out of bounds, all of these things that plague the Will Muschamp team. He's culture building. He's got a team playing for nothing but playing with a lot of pride. That's culture. right? Number 2, he is recruiting well. Not so much significantly above the level of his predecessors, pretty similar to the level of Will Muschamp, pretty similar to the level of Steve Spurrier, but he is exceeding them in the blue chip ratio. They've never hit the blue chip ratio. Beamer is hitting the blue chip ratio. Beamer is putting a super talented team together, okay? So the talent level is increasing by Shane Beamer. And number 3, all right, what he's doing is he's got the buy-in of the fan base, or the vast majority of the fan base. Believe me when I tell you this, I have learned this the hard way. You guys will defend Shane Beamer to the death. You will. You know, he is yours. He chose you. And even though he might be the crazy uncle, he's your crazy uncle, right? And because he chose you and he's been loyal to you and he wants to be there, and you haven't had a long-term winning coach who truly wants to be there, you choose him day after ever-loving day.
It's friggin' Beamer.
What does Shane Beamer need to improve upon? I don't know. Start acting like the job title that you have. You're the CEO of Gamecocks football. In many cases, you act like a petulant child. Okay? Whining, got a bunch of miserable fans. We will celebrate Jacksonville State win like heck. Got a bunch of miserable people out here. Find some joy. Popping off at radio hosts. If you know of one he popped off at, please let me know. Like, he needs to start acting like a CEO. You know, the top 10 coaches in college football don't pop off at radio hosts. They're busy game planning. You know, the top 10 coaches in college football don't care about what other people think. I do a better job of not caring what other people think of me than what Shane Beamer does. I do a better job of that. How about that? The results. He needs to improve upon the results. A couple weeks ago, he was 17 and 17. 500. Now he's 19 and 17. Just because you like him doesn't mean you can ignore the results, right? And then number 3, assistant hires. Going into last week's game against Vanderbilt, Shane Beamer, his defensive coordinator, Clayton White, had produced a defense that was 118th in America. 118th in the nation, my friends. Okay? Not going to get her done. Not going to get her done. Now, much better last week. You got a demoralized Kentucky coming into town. You've got a rejuvenated South Carolina playing at home in front of the home crowd. Alabama just threw the ball all over Kentucky a week ago. The spread of that Alabama game, by the way, was only, 10.5 points? And Kentucky was never in the game. You know, so Kentucky was thought to be an upper echelon SEC team, right? Or in the top half. And they showed themselves in that game to be a bottom half team. And if they're feeling down on themselves, going to South Carolina, yeah, when everything was clicking earlier in the year and when South Carolina wasn't, boy, Kentucky was much better on both lines. We'll see what it looks like on Saturday. I have a hunch that the wrong team just might be favored in that game. Kentucky is a narrow favorite. But for you guys, what do you make of it? Okay. I posted the graphic. It's on my Twitter page. What Beamer is doing well and where he needs to improve. Doing well is culture building, recruiting, and getting the fan base buy-in. Needs to improve upon acting like a CEO, results, and his assistant hires, staff hires. Really bad on the assistant hires front. Is that fair, Gamecock fans? Am I coming at this from a fair place or an unfair place? You tell me. 71307 is the text line where you can get to us on the carpro.com text line. We welcome your thoughts. Let's see here. Mark, I remember when you said that you and Diesel ran into Dabo and he'd never saw you before and he wasn't a jerk from what I remember. No, not at all. He could tell we were lost and he was trying to help us be found, you know? Let's see here. Texter says, I'm highly concerned the defense performs well the next few weeks and we end up keeping White. I'm torn. The texter insinuates. between wanting the defense to play well and you keep the DC or wanting the defense to play poorly. Texter says, next time Beamer and the Gamecocks go to a bowl, the name should be the Dr. Scholes Bowl. Scholes. Dr. Scholes Bowl, because of his foot. Yeah, Dr. Scholes. All right. Coming up next on the show, we flip the script to the Carolina Panthers. Diesel, it's not just that they lose. It's that C.J. Stroud goes on the road and beats a Super Bowl contender in the Cincinnati Bengals. Ay caramba. What is going on in Carolina? That's next here on Offside. Joining us right now, fresh off an East Carolina victory, is the voice of the East Carolina Pirates, but most importantly, the color analyst of the Carolina Panthers, our friend Jim Szoke, joins us right now on the show. Always do appreciate the time, Jim. So I heard Frank, sometimes I think coaches are placed in really tough positions in terms of questions the media asks. Last week, Robert Saleh was saying, well, was asked if Zach Wilson is playing so bad, why don't you play Simeon? Why don't you play the backup or somebody else? And Robert Saleh didn't have an answer, didn't know what to say. He said he's going to plead the fifth. Today, Frank Reich said in his presser, Jim, we have all of the pieces we need to win. Jim, I'm not trying to put you in a tough spot, but I'm watching this team, and I sense the opposite of that. I think they don't have nearly the pieces they need to win. What say you?
I think, for one thing, the pieces that they have are what they have. So I think you have to say that regardless, because trade deadline has passed. Unless you're going to make a deal in which you give someone some huge contract is the only way to get around that fact. And so I think, this is, these are the guys they're going to go with. They're the guys they brought in when the season began, by and large, when you look across the offense skill positions, because I think we all agree the defense has held up well, especially with the injuries. But when you look at the offensive side, I mean, these are all the new players. I mean, at running back, at tight end, at receiver, at quarterback. So these are not like some guys who, in the most cases, been here 3-4 years. These have all been here, 6 months. So I think these are the guys. And when you get to the next off season, you can address it differently. But as far as these remaining 8 games go, I mean, he's right. That's what they've got.
Jim, obviously against Chicago last week, we saw rock bottom offensively for the Carolina Panthers. And, it's hard to say rock bottom because it wasn't that much worse than what we've typically gotten all season long. I mean, we've typically seen right at 13 points, a touchdown and a couple of field goals, and the touchdown didn't come offensively for the Panthers this week. Can you offer any explanation as to just what did Chicago do to shut the Panthers down when what didn't take much to shut them down?
I just felt like, they're pretty much every game, Bryce is under a certain amount of duress. I felt like he was constantly under duress in this last game. I want to say Montez Sweat had 8 quarterback pressures in that game by himself. And he's only been there for 2 weeks. Obviously, he's a good football player wherever you put him, but he's even new to that system. They just don't seem to have the answers with what they're doing along the offensive line, whether that's how they're blocking or who's in there blocking, and as far as personnel. But it's not worked all year, and I think this was probably the most obvious case of that. And I'll be honest. I mean, I've seen times where Bryce, when given just some amount of time, can make really good reads and be accurate and make good decisions. He's not being given that. So I'm not absolving everything Bryce, but what I'm saying is, man, if he had time, I don't think we can really see what the real Bryce looks like. And again, if he had guys that were here like DJ Moore and Christian McCaffrey from the past, that certainly helped out, past guys like, say, Teddy Bridgewater or somebody like that, to have weapons of that level, which, again, they don't have an MVP candidate like Christian McCaffrey on this team. So I think, to me, as far as kind of putting it in a vacuum, you can't really do it because it's a team sport, but I think it begins up front. Whatever the reason is for that, if they have to change what they're doing in terms of how they're running the offense up front or whatever the case may be, it's hard to get a good grade on Bryce. But to answer your question, I thought he was under the most duress that he's been all year, and he even then had to run the ball a couple times just to get some yardage.
Jim Szoke joining us. Jim, I'm fascinated by the fact that NFL fans it's the one sport where fans don't allow you to grow, don't allow you to build. You're supposed to be great every single year. In college football, East Carolina's building something. The fan base in South Carolina is giving Shane Beamer time to build something. But in the NFL, it's all woe is me when the team is really struggling. And I can't imagine what the Houston Texans are doing is helping matters much. When you talk to friends and family about what Houston is doing relative to Carolina, CJ Stroud, relative to Bryce Young, how do you approach that?
Well, it's easier when you're Houston because they're seeing success right away. CJ Stroud has been talked about this weekend as an MVP candidate in this league. So the comparison is there. It doesn't really help your team if you're, a team that doesn't have CJ Stroud. All you can do is, look at it from a distance and see what he's done, which is amazing. 15 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He's also had a dinged up offensive line he's working behind, but they do have some, young, talented guys in that offense. May not be the biggest names that people were aware of, but they're becoming big names because they are putting it all together. But I'd still give CJ Stroud and what they're doing schematically with him, coaching-wise and all that, to put him in good positions to succeed. But it's his growth has been quick, and it's really been in some ways among the better rookie performances at that position in league history, especially in recent history. Now, for Bryce, it doesn't mean that Bryce can't become a very good quarterback. It's just like it's not happened through the first 9 games to that degree. And so it's a little bit hard to compare. What would it be like if one quarterback was on this team and you swap them out for another team? Would it be the same result? I don't know. But there's no denying just how fantastic, honestly, CJ Stroud has been up to this point.
Jim, what can you tell us internally, the conversations that may have been had in and around the water coolers in the building about the March on Mint Street and the conversation that fans were going to march? I'm looking at a lot of photos online, and I assume these are all fakes. I don't know what actually happened, if anyone showed up, but did the fact that some fans were organizing something like this reach higher levels of Panthers brass?
I mean, honestly, the way you phrase your question, I have no answer for you because I wasn't here. I mean, I was out of town for the weekend with the ECU game, and then I don't know water cooler talk that happens there. I'm contract laborer, so I don't know what the higher ups were thinking and talking about. All I know is somebody posted something on social media, and it looked like it was met by probably dozens of people that said they might go, which takes nothing more than liking a tweet, and then nothing came of it. So I wouldn't even give it the gravity or weight of anything. I don't know the people that were trying to put something out there to create something. So to me, it's a non-story.
What would be a story, and I look at this as a tremendous opportunity, Jim. You got Dallas coming down this weekend. Most popular brand in the NFL, the one that tries to claim America's team, et cetera, et cetera. And, they're ripe for the picking in terms of perhaps an upset. They're ripe for the picking in terms of, they lay some eggs every once in a while. It's hard for me to pinpoint what's missing from Dallas because you look at the personnel and you say to yourself, how is this not a Super Bowl contender? Great defense, wonderful offensive line, skill position talent. How does Carolina attack that team?
I think, what they have to do, first of all, is not beat themselves. And, for the Panthers, I think they just, they need to, not even think about who the opponent is so much. I mean, you're going to do, obviously, a regular game planning week and go through all that. But, yeah, with Dallas, obviously, right now they're hitting on all cylinders as far as what we just saw this past weekend in terms of putting up points was phenomenal, putting up 49 points. So, right away, to Diesel's point earlier, you can't score 10, 13 points and expect to win against the Dallas Cowboys with what they're rolling with right now. So obviously Dak is back and playing well. There were times in his career he's not played as well. I mean, their only recent losses were to San Francisco and Philadelphia. And that Niners game was kind of a blip because that was the only blowout loss. They played competitive against Philadelphia, and they've beaten everybody else, and they put up pretty good points along the way. They're just well-rounded on offense. Obviously, they got great wide receivers with CeeDee Lamb and the guys they've got there. They can run the ball well. Dak has been sharp right now. But I just think, for the Panthers, they've got to play all those things. Penalties have to be very minimal. You can't turn the ball over. They do at times when the Panthers move the ball, eat some clock because, hate to say, they're not a quick strike team. So sometimes when they get it, they can put together a 15-play drive. This would not be the worst week to have some of those because it keeps that offense on the sideline. So anything you can do to control time of possession, shorten the game, get to the fourth quarter, and not give Dallas more opportunities. Don't give them the big explosive plays. There's some positive news, and we'll see when he actually returns on a Sunday. But it looks like J.C. Horn is going to be out of the IR and into his window now for practice. Whether he's ready for this game, don't know. They don't have to activate him on a Sunday this soon, but should he be available, obviously that just adds another great defensive player. And you've gotten back Von Bell, Xavier Woods in recent weeks, so things like that against a team like Dallas, having a really stout secondary to get Brian Burns out of concussion protocol, C.J. Henderson out of concussion protocol, you can at least limit the score and keep that down because they do play very well. I think the Panthers do on defense. I think they've actually done above and beyond in terms of trying to keep the team competitive.
Jim Szoke, color analyst, Carolina Panthers. Follow him on Twitter at the same name, JIMSZOKE. Jim, thanks so much. Have an awesome week.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Jim Szoke, my friends. Coming up next on the show, who are the most unlikable personalities in all of college football? We'll tackle that with you when Offsides continues right after this. We are What's good, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Marc Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. I know you guys got a lot of choices out there. I truly do appreciate you making us part of your day. It is an honor to be part of the fabric of this community in the upstate. You can take part by giving us a call at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-FANFONE. That's 844-326-3663. And the carpro.com text line is there for you at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go on the show. Coming up momentarily, the most unlikable people in college football. Who are they? Who are they? But let's get caught up on some of what you guys are saying on the carpro.com text line. Texter says Mark Prime's name is mentioned for the Raiders. No chance of that. No chance of that.
He said last week that he has no intention of going to the NFL. Granted, things change, but he said last week he has no intention. He says, I don't think I would work in NFL.
Yes. Texter says, Mark, okay, for someone who doesn't care what people think of you, you dwell on Shane Beamer disagreeing with you on almost every show. Fair critique of Beamer, though. He definitely cares too much. No. Beamer didn't disagree with me. Beamer tried to bury us. Tried unsuccessfully to bury us. Okay? I took that as an assault at my job. Okay? Why? Because I've worked in markets where if the coach did that, it would cost you your job. I had a friend that covered the Arkansas Razorbacks. She went to cover a Bobby Petrino press conference when Bobby Petrino was the coach of Arkansas. Florida and Arkansas aren't particularly rivals. They rarely play, right? And it was raining, and she grabbed a hat because it was raining, and she rolls into the press conference, and she doesn't even know what hat she's got on, but it's a Florida hat. And Bobby Petrino says to her, that is the last question I will answer with you wearing that hat. Guess what happened to her? She got fired. She got fired by her job in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Fired for that. Okay, so it's not Beamer disagreeing with me. It's Beamer coming after my job and throwing the whole station under the bus when no one else had anything to do with that but me. Okay? I mean, that's what that was about. All right? But yeah, he definitely cares too much about what other people think. Texter says, Mark, I admit when I was wrong, damn wrong on my pick of Kentucky over Alabama. What a whipping we got. So says Trey from Kentucky. That was brutal. I mean, that was brutal. And it's hard to say you feel comfortable about South Carolina this week, right? Texter says, people keep saying the Panthers should have taken Stroud. He wouldn't be much better than Young in Carolina just because of the same lack of talent. It's hard to say. It's hard to say what would be different, what would be better. You can't do that, right? Let's see here. Texter says, why are you criticizing Shane's assistant hires? He told us all repeatedly that his phone was blowing up with SEC and NFL assistant coaches who wanted to coach under him. He must have made some awesome hires with all of that interest. Are you telling me Shane Beamer wasn't being 100% truthful with us now? This must be Dewey. I'm convinced this is Dewey.
Schema.
Let's see here. Texter says, don't tell Cole Bryson when he joins the show today that he bad mouthed the Cowboys today. Do you think Jimbo could share some of his $76.8 million? I have some ideas for that money. Mark, I accidentally put my upset pick in a little late on Friday. Does it still count? So says E-Thoughty. E-Thoughty, it counts so long as it came in before 7 o'clock p.m.
I do think there should be a rule, an NCAA rule, that a coach is not allowed to be paid by two institutions at the same time.
Sure.
If Jimbo Fisher accepts another job, great. Go get paid by that new school. But any money that you're still owed by the other school, I don't know if they would say terminate it or donate it to charity. I don't know, but whatever. Terminate the payment from the other school because it really, really hamstrings a school. Now, granted, again, Texas A&M's got it. It's not going to hurt them that badly. But still.
Frank Reich is also generating two salaries right now, too. So is
Matt, it's a hell of a racket.
So is Matt Rule.
Yeah.
Matt Rule is generating two salaries right now. Texter wants to know, Mark, do you think Jimbo will break me off some coin? How much?
He won't even break you off a piece of that Kit Kat bar.
No, man, not at all. How much would your lives change if you got just 1 million of Jimbo's 76.8? You know,
generally asking what amount of money to you. And I ask that of anybody who's on the text line, anybody who's commenting on the YouTube channel. What is the minimum amount of money that you would consider to be life-changing? Minimum amount of money that you would consider to be life-changing money.
250.
250,000?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, to me, life-changing is the total sum of all my debts. Mortgage, car payment, credit cards, etc. Wipe all my debt out. That is life-changing money to me.
Oh, yeah. Well, it is changing your life. But then above and beyond that, it's changing your quality of life.
Yeah.
It's changing your caliber of life, right? You know, to certain, now we've got great gigs that we love coming to, but to other people in our audience, $250,000, say, lets them say to their bosses, don't let the door hit you where the good Lord splits you. I'm doing something else.
Oh, if I won the lottery, I'd keep my job. I'd still work here.
Would you really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I got to do something.
I'm that way as well. Like to me, Diesel, the perfect amount of time to work in the week is 30 hours. You know, I think you got 168 hours in the week. Let me work 30 hours a week to keep my mind fresh and occupied, right? You don't use it, you lose it. That's what I would say. But I do think what's crazy about this Jimbo Fisher thing is that I don't believe the highest buyout in college football history has even been $20 million. I don't believe it's even been $20 million.
Obliterates it.
It just absolutely destroys it. And now you got the rich pockets at A&M footing the whole thing.
It's a truly disgusting amount of money.
We have the money to be wrong. We have the money to be wrong. It's absolutely insane. All right, guys. Who are the most unlikable people in sports? Now, Diesel, before you post this, we got to talk about this, okay? We got to talk about the post of this, because here's how I'm doing it. This is not my list, Marc Ryan's list of most unlikable sports personalities. I took a guess here, okay, in college football. If you did a national poll, what would people vote? Okay, who's most unlikable, right, in college football? And I put together a list of names, and let me tell you a change that's happened generationally. I've only got one player on this list. Why? Well, I was a high school teacher. Kids don't say outlandish, outspoken, brash things anymore. They don't. Like, it's not cool to be loud in today's day and age. I learned that as a high school teacher. I had the hardest time getting kids to go on camera and to have energy and to perform. Like they wanted to just be behind the scenes and run the camera, and no one wanted to be on camera, right? So you're seeing that in college football right now. Who are the really loathsome college football players? There's almost none of them, right? Like, quick, give me the three most troublemaking college football players today. Can't do it, right? Like, it didn't used to be that way.
Because they all have like brand coordinators at their school telling them, don't do anything this, don't do anything that.
Yeah.
You gotta make positive impressions on people. You got to minimize the negative. Where are the Brian Bosworths?
That's it. Where are the Bo Jacksons? Where are the in-your-face guys? Where are the primetime Deion Sanders strutting? So I've got a list of 17 names here, and 16 of them are coaches, okay? So I did this based on, if you ran a national vote, here are the 17 people that I think would have the most votes.
Currently, or is this all time?
Currently. Okay. Most unlikable current personalities in college football. Here's who I think would be the top 17 vote getters. Again, this is not me saying this guy is unlikable. Okay. This is what I think America would say. Okay. Who would America say? Here's the tease, Diesel. Who would America say are the most unlikable personalities in college football? Here's our guess. Brian Kelly, Chip Kelly, Coach Prime, Dave Doran. What did he say about Steve Smith a couple of weeks ago? He
said Steve Smith said we're a basketball school. Well, he can kiss my ass or something like that.
Yeah. Eli Drinkwitz. Did you hear Eli Drinkwitz's bomb on Saturday?
No.
He was doing his he's on the field right after the game. And he goes, man, our defense just kicked their ass, didn't they? And it's just like, I don't really hear coaches talk like that.
We're hearing it more and more though.
Yeah.
Coaches realize that getting out there in the public eye is good for them.
Oh yeah. So I got Brian Kelly, Chip Kelly, Coach Prime, Dave Doran, Eli Drinkwitz. I've got James Franklin, Jim Harbaugh, Jimbo Fisher, Lane Kiffin, Lincoln Riley, Mark Stoops, Matt Rule, Mike Gundy, Nick Saban, Ryan Day, Shane Beamer, Dabo Sweeney, and the one player, Shedeur Sanders. Why Shedeur Sanders? He's had a lot of this bling talk. He was taunting the Arizona State fans. Arizona State stinks this year. He's taunting them after they won. That rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. But Diesel,
yeah, that's the thing that is. Sorry to take us off topic here. That's the thing that really the one thing that rubs me the wrong way about Deion is because Deion is all about respect, but then it's okay for his players, his son, to go disrespect another team, but that's okay. Yeah, because he's got to show off that bling. Like, come on, Deion, which is it? Are you about respect or are you not about respect? You're either about it all the time or you're about it none of the time. It's the famous line from John Wick 4.
How you do anything is how you do everything.
Well, that's right. And Deion, what we loved about Deion was not that he respected everybody, Diesel. What we loved about him is that he was brash and that he was showy and that we did things that we never saw before. And I personally think, I get a lot of what Dabo Sweeney says. And to you and I, Dabo Sweeney was very likable when we had our encounter with him. We interviewed Dabo at the ACC kickoff this year. Very likable. But I'm telling you that my belief is America would vote him as one of the more unlikable personalities in college football. But there's only one player on this list that I could think of, Shedeur Sanders. Am I missing somebody? Brian Kelly, tried to make a joke about, how do you feel about the execution of his offense? He's in favor of it. That was funny when Rich McKay did it on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Brian Kelly butchered the joke. He just seems like the last guy you'd want to hang out with, Diesel, at a bar. Brian Kelly, he'd be
miserable.
He just seems like he's genuinely a jackwagon. Just genuinely, really, it seems like it's really hard for him to be nice. Really hard. Chip Kelly, kind of one and the same. Coach Prime and his brashness and not following any of the rules about how things are done. Dabo Sweeney and the pearl clutching a little bit about the days of yesterday in college football. Coming at fans. Dave Doran, again, generally being a jackwagon. Eli Drinkwitz, why? For being in everybody's face all the time. James Franklin, he's unlikable, Diesel, for sucking, for getting paid like he's a top coach, and he's nowhere close to that. Penn State now 3-17 against top 10 teams. Jim Harbaugh, for being a prickly son of a gun. Okay, he's quite prickly. We shared with you that bomb of an interview with Colin Cowherd a while back, Jim Harbaugh with Colin Cowherd. He's prickly, and he doesn't seem to follow the rules. Jimbo Fisher, for being arrogant and for leaving every place that he coaches at worse than when he got there. Lane Kiffin, right? Brash, funny, in your face. Lincoln Riley, I think the knock on Lincoln Riley is he's kind of been gift wrapped in silver spoons and, just kind of been ushered into the best jobs without really proving it. Mark Stoops, fellow coaches don't like Mark Stoops. He's got the stupid sunglasses comment about Shane Beamer. Mike Gundy is in everyone's face. I'm a man, I'm 40. Nick Saban, half the time Nick Saban is generally just a grouch. Ryan Day lately seems mad at the world. Shane Beamer, all reasons we've discussed on the show, and Shedeur Sanders we've already discussed. Am I missing anybody? Who would you say on this list is the most unlikable personality in college football? Okay, I did that list based on if you voted on it, if America voted on it, these are the top 17 vote getters. Okay, but what say you? Who is most unlikable? 71307 on the carpro.com text line is where you can get to us. And Offsides, Marc Ryan and Diesel will continue right after this. We are the Fan Upstate. Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Thrilled to have you with us.
Ooh, Mongo has a problem with Danny Cannell. He says he is can we say this word, the D word?
Yeah, I don't think so.
And he has, it's not the 4-letter D word, it's the 6-letter D word. Those of you who can figure that one out. He has the worst takes ever. Do you have a problem with the Mongo because of his take on the SEC and y'all's weird insular, love fest with yourselves? Is that why you have a problem with the Mongo?
Must be.
Says you losers who cheer for your conference. I love that clip. I love that clip.
Yeah, that's one of the all-time best clips from Danny Cannell. I'm going to keep this, guys, to people currently in college football. Okay. So like Danny Cannell's a personality. Diesel and I are personalities. We're not eligible for this so honorable distinction, right? Most unlikable people in college football. If you put America up to a vote on this, okay, who would win? And who is your most unlikable person in college football? Based upon Mark's profile, it won't matter who the audience says is the most unlikable. It's unlikable. It's going to be Beamer. I wish there was something that could be done to make your personal feelings take a 180. Unfortunately, there's nothing. You have become a fanboy of CU, Dabo, and Beamer. They are the same personality-wise. You know, it's fascinating. I was just over the weekend, I was told I was a Gamecock homer. So I always say that we're doing something right when both sides think we're in bed with the other. Both sides think we're cheating. Okay. Let's see here. Texter says South Carolina's whole O-line is pretty unlikable. Yeah, I'm down with that.
When is this nightmare going to end?
Urban Meyer was mentioned. Yeah, again, guys, currently working in college football. Who's number one? Who's number one on this list of the most unlikable people in college football? I'd love to know what you would say. Diesel, who would win America's vote, and who is your most unlikable person in college football?
Well, I think very easily right now, I think Jim Harbaugh is going to win America's vote. There's only one fan base that likes Jim Harbaugh.
You know what the irony of that is? He said today at his press conference that Michigan is now America's team. Okay? Because of what they've triumphed over and what they've overcome. And it's just like, doesn't that show you how insular he is?
Yeah.
And how he just doesn't get what the national perception of him
Well,
is?
you know, we have this audio. We had two pieces of audio. One of them, for some reason, is corrupted and it won't play. But we have his assistant coach. His name is Sharon Moore. He was coaching on the sideline this weekend, and he goes into this like blubbery, crying, I miss Coach Harbaugh so much. I did it for him. And then we had audio of JJ McCarthy essentially saying something very similar. That's the one that is corrupted and won't play. But it's like, what is this cult of Harbaugh that is growing at the University of Michigan? I don't understand it.
Can we play the one of that assistant coach?
Yeah, we got it.
Here we go. Listen to this after the game.
I get being emotional that you, as your first game as an acting head coach, you win the game, a big game. I get being emotional because you won the game. But can we cool it out a little bit with the, we did it for you, Jim. We love you, Jim. Like he's Jim Harbaugh. He's not John Lennon.
And he's fine. And he's coaching the team during the week. What do you mean? Like he's some martyr or something.
Mongo says he drops an F-bomb and then Spur Daddy follows it up with after thanking God. That's that's not a good combo of moments there.
All right. So who do I think would win the fan vote? And I use the term win in parentheses loosely. Jim Harbaugh would win America's vote for the most unlikable personality in college football. That's my opinion. Who do I think is the most unlikable personality in college football? I think it's Brian Kelly, quite honestly. If I can't think of a worse fate than having to report to Brian Kelly.
You mean family?
I can't think of a worst fate. He was a fraud when he said that, right? He has to really, when people have to try not to be a jerk, we're all capable of being a jerk. Let's get that out in the open, right? You push our buttons, you cut us off in traffic. We're all capable. We all have it in us to have a high level of jerkitude, right? But when you have to try not to be a jerk, that's when I want nothing to do with you. So I think Jim Harbaugh wins the vote. I think Brian Kelly is my most unlikable person in all of college football. Okay. And to those of you that are saying Dabo shouldn't be on this list, there's a lot of people that would vote Dabo unlikable. For those of you saying Shane Beamer shouldn't be on this list, there's a lot of people who would vote Shane Beamer unlikable. A lot of people that would vote him unlikable. So that's all I can tell you. All right. Who is yours most unlikable personality in college football? I got a feeling Lane Kiffin would get some love on this list. Matt Rule would get some love on this list. In these parts, Dave Doran would get a lot of love on this list. But what say you? 71307 on the carpro.com text line. And my friends, we are going to be joined by Chris Phillips coming up next here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. Offsides, Marc Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides, Marc Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate, joined right now by the host of the Daily Crow, the Spurs Up Show. It's Chris Phillips joining us here on Offsides, the Fan Upstate. I said, Chris, the first truly complete performance of the year for the Gamecocks, and yeah, it was against Vanderbilt. But realize it was only just a couple of weeks ago that folks were wondering if South Carolina could beat Vanderbilt. So do you think the Gamecock Nation, in the midst of an otherwise disappointing season, is appreciating this win, Chris? Or is the mindset, is the mood tracker still down in the dumps?
Well, Mark and Diesel, first things first, I appreciate you guys having me on. I think there's a lot better feelings, obviously, here on this Monday, a victory Monday, if you will, because to your point, Mark, I do agree with you. That was the most complete performance we've seen from South Carolina this season, even going back to the Furman game, right? That one early on had some really, really tense moments until you started to pull away from the Paladins near halftime. But, yeah, complete performance by South Carolina. It's crazy to look back, Mark, and realize that game was 13-0 at halftime against the Commodores, and Gamecocks really just ran away with it in that second half. I think I think many folks have found their joy in the victory, if you will. But let's be honest, Mark, this season was never about beating Vanderbilt. This season was never about beating Jacksonville State. And I think people have that perspective and they have that in their minds. The next 2 weeks will tell us what we need to know, right? So it's a good win. I think the best thing that comes from it, Mark, for South Carolina is not so much that, all of a sudden the Gamecocks are a completely different football team than they were, say, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we learned a bunch of new things about South Carolina on Saturday. But it's the momentum's a fickle mistress. And Mark, I'm sure you know as well as anybody, like when you get positive momentum, when you get Uncle Mo on your side, hold on for dear life and ride that wave, right? And I think we'll see if they can do that the next 2 weeks. But that's the best thing coming out of that is that positive momentum. Your football team starts to feel good about themselves. You have the back-to-back wins, and now you've got back-to-back night games against Kentucky and Clemson to try to capitalize on it. So I think all in all, Gamecock Nation is happy about what happened on Saturday, but obviously realizes the task that lies ahead as well.
Chris, can you point to any seeming philosophy changes from Shane Beamer over the last 2 weeks? Obviously, you watched the game much closer than I did. I'm here just looking at a stat sheet, and I see Nick Harbor only had one reception for 16 yards. You'd have to tell me how much he played, how many snaps he might have played. But are we seeing Beamer being, loosening up a little bit and playing some of these younger, more talented guys more often?
Well, Diesel, I think they're having to do that too because of injuries, right? They're so depleted at this point. Juju McDowell goes down on Saturday with a season-ending collarbone injury, so you saw a lot more of the freshman Dontavius Braswell at the running back position. Nick Harbor's playing a lot, guys, and I don't think that's really from necessity. I think it's just he's becoming familiar with the scheme, the system. He's getting acclimated to the wide receiver position, and therefore he's earning more reps, and that's why you're seeing him get more opportunities. I know the catches and the yards and numbers have gone down over the last couple of weeks, but do not be surprised if over one of these next two games you see Nick Harbor kind of break out and have that big breakout performance, if you will. But have philosophies changed, guys? I don't think so. I don't. And if they have, I guess we'll find out more so against Kentucky, guys. I look at this one, and I'm not ready to lock in any sort of score prediction or anything like that. But, I'm not one so quick to forget who this football team is. And again, I think this team sort of is what it is. The best news upcoming in the final two games and what we knew about this 4-game stretch, they're all at home. And South Carolina is able to build some positive momentum, as I mentioned. Like I said, in the game Saturday, it was the Spencer Rattler, Xavier Legette, and Mario Anderson show. Just like it's been all year, the one thing that jumped off the page was the Gamecocks defense and the performance they had. Is that who they really are, or was Vanderbilt just that incompetent? Only time will tell. And then Beamer ball showing itself and getting the big special teams play. I think that's big also. But I think a lot of different guys, Diesel, right now are contributing, and I think they're going to need those guys to continue to do that over the final 2 weeks.
What's really going on, Chris, with Juice Wells? I mean, I've heard Shane Beamer a couple times mention Juice Wells is not there mentally. So is this, as well as I do all the different things that have been intimated here. He wants to go to the NFL, doesn't see the risk and doesn't understand doesn't want to take the risk in playing and re-aggravating it. Shane Beamer comes out and says he wants to play. This was not an injury that was supposed to be season ending. So why shuffle all this under the rug? Why not just be above board about it? Lonzo Ball in the NBA has a knee issue, keeps re-aggravating the knee issue. It just feels like this has been mysterious and a bit hush-hush and honestly kind of weird.
Yeah, Mark, it's one of the greatest mysteries of South Carolina's 2023 season, right? I mean, I take you all the way back to the summer and preseason camp when Shane Beamer assured us all that Juice Wells was good to go, and he practiced and he's practicing and he's doing well. And, on the flip side, I had heard rumors that Juice Wells was not practicing, was injured, was dealing with that foot injury. And wouldn't you know it, you get to the first game, and yeah, Juice Wells was on the field, but he wasn't himself, right? He was obviously hurt. He was obviously dealing with something, and I think that obviously affected that game for South Carolina. Certainly it affected his play. Gets re-injured in that Georgia game, and, Mark, it's pure speculation from me. I haven't heard anything concrete. I will say that they've done a really good job this year of keeping things in-house. It's like Fort Knox over there. You can't get a straight answer from anybody about this. I will say to your point, though, Mark, when you're trying to read between the lines, hearing what Shane Beamer says, it definitely sounds like a guy that's getting ready for the NFL draft. And it sounds like a guy that probably is healthy enough to play, but is at the point of why would he risk it? Now, again, I could be totally off base, so I'm not telling you that's what's happening. Maybe he is close, but he's just not quite there. But unfortunately, we're at the point where, you have to read in between the lines, and you have to guess because, to your point, we simply cannot get a straight answer on it. So I don't know what's going on, but, guys, I don't expect to see Juice Wells on the field the next 2 weeks. And I said that weeks ago that I'd be surprised if South Carolina fans probably ever saw him in garnet and black again. Now, we'll see what happens with NIL and can they convince him to stay. But it would not shock me at all at this point if Juice Wells is not resting up, healing up, and getting ready for the combine and, effectively the NFL draft.
Chris, now we're obviously 2 weeks past Halloween at this point, but I want you to picture the Texas A&M roster as a big bowl of candy. And there's something that you could go in there and pluck off of that A&M roster because let's be real, over the next couple of weeks and months, every coach is going to come circling, even though it's not allowed, even though you're not supposed to try to recruit guys off of other people's rosters. But is there a deficiency on South Carolina's team on the roster that you feel like a player off of that team might very easily be able to fill and improve?
Yeah, Diesel, that's a really good point. You know, obviously what's going on in College Station, I mean, the transfer portal, it's going to be a wild portal cycle. I mean, my mind immediately goes, Diesel, to defensive line. I mean, South Carolina right now, for whatever reason, I know I heard Mark's segment earlier and saw over the weekend the graphic about what Shane Beamer is doing well. And, you know, recruiting is something they're having success in, but you realize right now, guys, South Carolina's only got one defensive end or edge player, if you will, that is committed in this current recruiting class. The Gamecocks desperately need some big-time defensive linemen. They've lost some battles to Georgia and some other border rivals during this cycle. And while I'm sure they've got their eyes set on a couple of guys to shore things up and complete the class, you know they're going to be active in the transfer portal, going out and trying to find guys that can boost that defensive front. And Texas A&M guys, for everything they weren't this season and they weren't under Jimbo Fisher, they've got elite defensive line talent all over the place. So if there's one spot I would say it would benefit South Carolina to, at minimum make some efforts there in the portal, I would say the defensive line and those front seven guys that Texas A&M has, because they've got a wealth of talent in regards to that position unit in College Station.
Chris Phillips joining us. Chris, I think the wrong team is favored next Saturday. A month ago, I never would have said South Carolina could be on the field with Kentucky. The differences of the line play, but now South Carolina is running the football. For the first time all season, South Carolina stopped the run. Kentucky is demoralized. I'm not sure what Kentucky is playing for. South Carolina rallying at home, playing for bowl eligibility. The momentum behind this game, I think the Gamecocks should be favored over Kentucky. What say you?
Yeah, Mark, it's interesting. Momentum is a real thing, right? And you mentioned Kentucky, a team that's lost 4 of its last 5, and a team that a lot of folks were high on, and they've been just really underwhelming this year, including that beatdown to Alabama and just the way it happened. You know, I thought South Carolina would open as a slight favorite. I was somewhat surprised they didn't. But then again, I feel like Pick'em, where it opened for our friends over at Circa Sports, was the right line. To see Kentucky favored, I think, is interesting. And what it tells you guys that Vegas is just giving absolutely no credit to the wins over Jacksonville State and Vandy. I mean, I just that's what it has to be telling me. They're giving absolutely no credit to those wins. South Carolina is what they are, and that'll show up on Saturday. Guys, admittedly, and again, I have not locked in a score prediction, but admittedly, I sit here, I still think Kentucky is a better football team top to bottom than South Carolina, but the game is at Williams-Brice Stadium at night, and it's late in the season when weird things happen for Shane Beamer coach teams. So all that being said, guys, I think a pick'em was fair where it opened. I would probably as well, Mark, make South Carolina a slight 1 or 2 point favorite. But, that's saying a lot more than I would have thought, to your point, Mark, about a month ago, where I probably would have said Kentucky should be at least a 7-point favorite in the game. So it's a matchup of, it's going to be a fun game to watch the matchups, right? Like Ray Davis and the Kentucky rushing offense against that South Carolina rushing defense. How much have they really improved? Like, how much has South Carolina actually improved as a football team over the last 2 weeks? And what answers do they have for Kentucky, who's got weapons on the offensive side and I think has the ability to make life really, really difficult on Clayton White and company. So I would agree with you, Mark, to the standpoint of it's a home game at night. South Carolina's been so good there. They've been a completely different team under the lights at Williams-Brice Stadium over the last couple of years. But I will say, guys, in the Shane Beamer era, South Carolina has lost one SEC game, that entire 2+ year tenure, at home at night. That game was Kentucky back in 2021. So the Cats will not be fazed by the environment, and I think it's going to be a great game, back and forth, down to the wire type of ball game.
Chris, I want you to indulge me here in a little thought experiment of all the SEC games that you've watched and all the time you've spent closely following this conference. Is there another program, and I'll even open it up to all of college football, that you think South Carolina's program really mirrors? Like you've always felt like South Carolina and this program are kind of kindred spirits.
Well, right now, Diesel, I'd say South Carolina and Arkansas are wildly similar when it comes to the football side of things. I think both teams have really passionate fan bases. Both teams right now, have head coaches that, are kind of like their guys. They're just great culture fits. They embody everything about that school, right? You ask any Arkansas fan, Sam Pittman is an Arkansas guy, right? He's got a hog statue in his yard, what have you, right? If that really matters, but still, like, he's their dude. Shane Beamer, the same way. And I think both two don't have great history or tradition. I'm pretty sure Arkansas has got a little bit more than South Carolina, but both are trying to break through in their respective conferences or break through the SEC and are kind of always the bridesmaid and never the bride, if you will. So those two, that's the immediate one, guys. It's a really easy comparison because I think of the Beamer-Pittman comparison. And what's so interesting about that is Pittman's kind of had a similar path, or Beamer's taking a similar path to what Pittman had. A lot of early success, right? Pittman wins 9 games in year 2. Beamer won 8 in year 2. All of a sudden, 6-6 for Pittman in year 3. Now they're falling off a cliff this year. Shane Beamer this year, 4-6 with 2 to play. What happens next year with a daunting schedule? We shall see. So those two really do feel similar, Diesel, in regards to comparing the football programs. I think there's a lot of interesting comparisons between the two.
Chris, you got to break the tie here on this night game stuff, because I was talking to some people, some of the folks at our nationally syndicated betting service here at Odyssey, BetQL, today, and they told me, Mark, night has no bearing on the line. Night, day, middle of the day, etc., no bearing. I'm thinking, Chris, I had this idea today that next year I might commission my own study just to study the frequency with which upsets happen, right? Percentage of the time upsets. I know in college football, Chris, they happen 22% of the time. So 22% of the time an underdog wins over the favorite team, right? But a greater number of those at night, at 3:30, at noon, when the home team might be sleepy and overlooking. What is it about night? Why does Las Vegas not respect this? But people like you and everybody else, oh, this is a huge deal. Williams Brice at night. They say it means nothing.
If that's the belief system, then I think it's a very flawed one, Marc Ryan. And I would suggest those people to go to Williams Brice Stadium at night. Heck, go to Clemson at night. Go to Georgia. Go wherever you want to go, right? Into these big-time atmospheres. It makes a difference, man. It does. I don't know how anybody could say it doesn't. I've always heard that it was a 3-point, right? 3-point favor to the home team, if you will. That's how you always kind of calculate it. Okay, what would it be on a neutral field?
Right.
This, that, whatever. I would say it's worth 3 points. It's worth something.
Well, no. Home field is worth 3 points, but not night.
Okay.
Night.
Oh, but at night. Okay.
Yeah, see what I'm saying?
What time it's played doesn't matter.
Like I see you guys making it. I see you and some others making a big deal at night. I got BetQL folks telling me nighttime makes 0 points on the betting line. And so what is it? Does it matter? Does it not matter?
Well, I think it does. I mean, I think, again, go to a game, go to a noon game at Williams Brice Stadium, then go to a night game. And you're going to find that. I mean, Mark, listen, I'm not making excuses. I'm convinced, though. I'm just convinced in my brain that if South Carolina had Florida at 7 o'clock versus 3:30, they find a way to get a stop and win that game. Maybe they flicker more lights. Heck, I don't know. But either way, it's just a different beast, man. Everybody's got all day long to tailgate, get liquored up, right? Get boozed up, whatever they need to get ready to go. I feel like for Columbia, for some reason, like if there's more time in the day, more people can get there, show up, although crowd attendance is never really a problem. It's just a different vibe, though, man. It's hard to explain, and if you don't understand it, you just have to go and experience it for yourself. But, I mean, again, look at LSU, right? I mean, they're the kings of this. It's Death Valley at night, or LSU's Death Valley. It just hits different than during the day or any other time. So I don't know how many points it's worth, Marc Ryan, but I definitely think, I know you're asking about the Clemson game. If that game was at noon versus it being a night game, I think there's a big difference. I really do. And again, I think you look at the Shane Beamer era and how they fared at night. It's made a big difference. Again, though, what's interesting about that, Mark, South Carolina closing with back-to-back 7:30 kickoffs. They've lost 2 night home games in Shane Beamer's tenure. 2021, Kentucky and Clemson. Who were the final 2 opponents? Kentucky and Clemson. So how much does it matter in those games? I don't know, because those 2 teams have battled the adversity at Williams Brice Stadium and found a way to win a ball game, but we'll see if it helps South Carolina in this case.
Well, Chris, to the question that I asked you just a minute ago, this may not be a comparison that you want to hear, but a texter reaches out and says South Carolina football is kindred spirits with Clemson men's basketball. So that's not a good one to have.
I'm not taking that as a compliment, guys. I'm not at all.
Chris Phillips, the Spurs Up Show. Check out the Daily Crow every single day of the week, 12p to 2p. And I'll be joining Chris this Thursday at 12:05 p.m. Thanks as always, Chris. Thanks so much, man. Appreciate it.
Mark and Diesel, it's always a blast, guys. Y'all have a great week.
All right, Chris Phillips. The top 5 at 5 is coming your way next, right here on Offsides. We are the Fan Upstate. What's good, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Marc Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Fantastic to have you guys with us. Always do appreciate you making time for us here on a Monday edition of the show. Could not do it without you ever. And, man, we appreciate you so much. Thank you so very, very much for making the show what it's become, part of the fabric of our community right here. Here's how you can take part in the show. You can give us a ring at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-326-3663. And the carpro.com text line is there for you at 71307 to start your text with the word fan, and away you go on the show. Zach Arnett lost his job at Mississippi State. Some are saying Mississippi State did him dirty. What do I say? Not really. You saw a major step down after Mike Leach. They're not looking to do that. Mike Leach took them to a level that was kind of Dan Mullen-esque-ish, right? Zach Arnett immediately brought them back down to earth. There wasn't any particular area that you could feel good about if you're a Mississippi State fan. Jimbo Fisher loses his job. It's not a surprise that it happened. It's a surprise that it happened when it did, after that fresh off a 51-10 win. How crazy is it that A&M and Mississippi State played each other on Saturday? Were both athletic directors talking to them, having conversation during the game? Yeah, we're going to bleep can our guy after the game. How about you? That's a good idea. We're going to bleep can ours too. Both guys got fired. A&M won the game 51-10. The problem for Jimbo Fisher, he made twice as much as the previous coach, Kevin Sumlin, and produced about the same results. Jimbo Fisher was 27-21 in the SEC. Kevin Sumlin was 25-23.
SEC Shorts had an excellent video about this. It was a group of A&M fans gathering around one of those Balthazar, you drop in a quarter and it predicts your future machines, like from the movie Big. And the thing comes to life and it's like, oh, it's you guys. Let me be real with you. It's not going to go the way that you want it to. They're like, oh, well, even if we don't win a national championship, we'll play for a few, right? They're like, yeah, no, not even close. Win the conference? No, it's not going to happen. Win the division? Nope. And it's just A&M fans spiraling and trying to deal with it. That's great. It's great. I love SEC Shorts. They're so good.
Yeah, they're fantastic. Fantastic. Got to check those out if you haven't done so already. All right, my friends, it is time for us. And by the way, also talking to you guys about the most unlikable college football personalities. I think you know as well as I do, if you put it up to America's vote, right? If you said, give us the most unlikable personalities in college football, I think both Beamer and Dabo would be on that list. It doesn't mean that, I don't know. Dabo hasn't been unlikable to me. Beamer has been unlikable to me, but Dabo has not, right? You're just predicting how America would vote, right? I think you both know Dabo and Beamer would be on that list, right? But who is the most unlikable personality in college football? That said, my friends, it is time for us to do that jam. We call it the top 5 at 5, the top 5 biggest sports stories of the day, the top 5 topics we're discussing. Ladies and gentlemen of the Upstate, Offsiders, the top 5 at 5 starts right now.
And now, the top 5 at 5.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hit it.
5.
How about the shock on Friday night? If only somebody had warned you that no one was giving Hillcrest a shot all week long. And then Hillcrest goes out and punks Burns on Burns' home field, 27-24 in overtime. You know, I was looking at this game, and I'm like, why are people talking about Hillcrest like they're a nothing non-conference game for Burns? Oh, yeah, just passing the time. They're a 5A team who's 9-2. 9-2. And now for the second straight week, we've got a Hillcrest Ram as our high school player of the week. Now Burns is playing for nothing because they're going home. Let me tell you, I was not at the game on Friday, but I was told by a number of people they were beside themselves at some of the coaching decisions that they saw from Burns. Burns had a 24-10 lead later in the contest. Could not hold it. Continue to beat itself, stab itself in the foot. You've heard people like Cole Bryson say, let me tell you, Mark, the issue with Burns has not been the talent. What does that tell you? If the issue isn't the talent, what is it? If the team has a 24-10 lead and blows it, what's the problem? Especially when everybody is livid. But I told you all week long, do not overlook Hillcrest. And it seems like Burns did exactly that. Now the season for the Rebels is finito. And we're bummed because we don't have high school games to carry anymore. Next up.
4.
Folks, this is something that we need to nip in the bud right now, so I'm going to use my platform to do just that. Diesel, I'd like you to listen carefully to what I read here. This is from On3 Services Recruiting. They say Miami 4-star wide receiver commit Chance Robinson is now focused on making a final decision after official visits to Ole Miss and Ohio State. Quote, I need to decide where I want to be and what school is going to have the best plan for me. 4-star Miami wide receiver commit. Is that acting like commitment to you?
That is not a commitment.
Do we understand, folks, what the word commitment means anymore? Do we understand? Right? An engagement or obligation that restricts freedom of action. The state or quality of being dedicated to a cause, activity, etc. Once you commit, you do not have freedom of action. Why have we lost the meaning of this word? A good follow on Twitter, his name is Right Field Renegades Klubnik's Army, says, I don't understand how we accept this verbiage as normal. Miami commit is now trying to decide between Miami, Ohio State, and Ole Miss. Like, what are we doing here? You know, I really value how Dabo doesn't allow kids to commit unless they're done taking visits.
Yeah, I think it's time to readjust and substitute the word lean. He's leaning Miami. He's not committed to Miami. He's leaning towards Miami.
But it's the exact same problem we have in romantic relationships today. You know? Like,
yeah, you're leaning towards this girl you've been dating for the last 8 months, but, you know, you step out every now and again, you're not committed.
You're not committed at all. You know, we don't understand the value of commitment anymore.
Can we get a wellness check on Madcraft, by the way? This news, I'm sure, is very devastating to him.
Oh, it is. It is. But, yeah, like, guys, we got to do better. We got to do better on the commitment front, you know, and, you know, we got to stop normalizing this. We have to coalesce and be actively critical every single time we hear something like this. Every time we hear something like this, we need to be actively critical because it's a joke and it's an epidemic in our society today. Commitment, an engagement or obligation that restricts freedom of action. Somebody want to tell Chance Robinson that? Pathetic. Pathetic. And you don't want to assume somebody didn't grow up well or something like that. You don't want to assume that, okay? But some lessons are clearly not being taught. Next up.
Oh, before I get there, Madcraft says Armando Blunt was committed to Miami, flipped to Florida State, and now says he may flip back. We don't want you. I need unwavering.
That's it, man. That's it. Hey, man, I was committed to you in a relationship. Then I cheated on you, but I may flip back.
That guy will transfer immediately when things aren't going his way.
Exactly. You don't want that. You don't need that. Next up.
3.
At number 3, Clemson against Georgia Tech. Who told you not to pick Georgia Tech in the upset pick challenge? Yet double digits of you guys, of you offsiders, did. I told you, this is a wasted pick. Clemson has turned a corner. Clemson has found a wave of momentum. Clemson is playing at home in front of a raucous crowd. And I'm telling you, Dabo Swinney does a better job than just about every coach in America at continuing to get buy-in when the goals of the season have been lost. He gets that buy-in week in and week out. Georgia Tech had an offense. Georgia Tech didn't have an offense against the number 6 defense in America, Clemson. Haynes King had been in line with Jaden Daniels, one of only 2 quarterbacks in America that had thrown for over 2,000 yards, rushed for over 500 yards, and thrown for 20 touchdown passes or more. What did Haynes King do against Clemson? -3 yards rushing, 129 yards passing on a 13 for 31 effort, and a QBR, wait for it, of 10.1. Total ever-loving beatdown. All right? Georgia Tech fans were saying to me last week, why aren't we in your ACC top 5, Marc Ryan? Why aren't we in your ACC top 5? Yeah, I said beat Clemson and you will be. It's amazing. I haven't heard from a single one of them since Saturday. Not a single one. Clemson is playing its best football right now. Cade Klubnik is still being asked just to play a game manager role. But when you have that defense, so long as you don't turn the ball over, you're going to be in every game. So game manager it away. Cade, keep game managing it all the way through. Next up.
2.
How about Furman? How about Furman, my friends? Absolutely, positively opening a can on VMI over the weekend with a backup quarterback at the helm. In so doing, earning the first outright title in the SoCon Conference for the Dins since 1990. They effed VMI 1 time. They effed VMI 2 times. They effed VMI 3 times. Oh, no, my friends. They have effed VMI all the time.
So, Mark, I've taken on Saturday evenings after a lot of these games have been played, I've taken to the Fan Upstate Twitter account, and I'm sharing, or excuse me, to the Instagram account, and I'm sharing the game-winning announcements from local college teams to our story. And I posted Furman's notification that they had won with the poll. The question was FU 1 time. And then the options that they could click and vote were FU 2 times, 3 times, or all the time. And the most common answer, all the time.
Yeah.
By like 70% of the vote.
Yeah. Yeah. All the time, baby. And twice on Sunday. And let me tell you what else, guys. Furman is 1 game away from clinching the number 2 seed in the FCS playoffs, meaning what? They will host every single game at home until the national championship game. Can we pledge together that we're going to pack Paladin Stadium? You, me, and everybody, we're going to pack Paladin Stadium. They're going to get a first-round bye. We're going to pack Paladin Stadium for these FCS playoffs because Furman's going to be hosting every single game until the end, and we need to show them our support.
Can we get the FCS national championship game back to the East Coast somewhere? Before I was in school, it was in Idaho. They used to play it at the University of Idaho for years, and they do this in like 10-year blocks. The same site will host the game for a decade. And before I got to school, it was in Idaho. When I was in school, it was in Chattanooga. It was fantastic. It was just across the mountains in Tennessee. It's been in Frisco for quite a while now. It's time to move this thing. Get it out of Frisco. Get it back on the East Coast somewhere. And I'm telling you, man, go into a national championship game that's a 2.5-hour drive, 2-hour drive from where your campus is. It couldn't be a better atmosphere. It's essentially a home game for you.
Let's make it happen. Go Dins. Super proud of you guys,
If
man.
only Malden had a stadium.
That's true. And finally,
1.
who is number 1 on our list today? The Gamecocks. most complete performance of the year. The one thing Vanderbilt could do coming in was throw the football. They couldn't throw the football against you. Mid-200s in total yards for Vanderbilt. How much better of a team is Jacksonville State than Vanderbilt, by the way? Oh, my gosh. And the Gamecocks are peaking right where you want them to be peaking, right at the end of the year, playing for bowl eligibility. You've got Kentucky coming up at home this weekend. I think the wrong team is favored in that game. I think it should be the South Carolina Gamecocks. Kentucky's not playing for anything anymore. South Carolina suddenly can run and stop the run. And before you hit me with it's just Vanderbilt, that ignores the fact that the team has improved significantly between September, when Furman was giving them a run for their money, and Vanderbilt. Okay? 47-6 was the final score. And I think it's okay to stop and smell the roses, even in an otherwise down season. South Carolina has a shot to make a bowl game yet again this year. You know, the game time for the Clemson game is announced. I've been told to never call it the Palmetto Bowl. I'm told to call it Clemson, South Carolina, and nothing else. So I've learned 7:30 p.m. It'll be in the lights. Clemson fans, are you scared of playing South Carolina in the lights? Does that get to you? Because they were pleading for a night game. Look, from what we've been told, the spread of that game is going to be in the single digits, under a touchdown, 6.5 points. Kentucky is favored over South Carolina. I think South Carolina should be favored over Kentucky. Will Clemson, South Carolina this year, will that game be decided by a single-digit score or a double-digit score? You let us know. Congrats, Gamecocks, on the most complete game of the year and proving yourselves to be, if not a top 25 outfit, a potentially one that is becoming a respectable team. And those are today's top 5 at 5. Now it's your chance to chime in, which you can do at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-FANFONE. That's 844-326-3663. TheCarPro.com text line is there for you at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan and away you go. You can get to us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube at The Fan Upstate on every one. Please like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to us on YouTube. And finally, email. You guys can all email the show. Marc Ryan, that's M-A-R-C Ryan at thefanupstate.com. All the different ways you can get in touch with us here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere. Coming up next, boy, Cole Bryson's got some splaining to do after some playoff picks that he had over the weekend and setting the table for the very, very next round. What was the caliber of play here in the Upstate overrated all year long? That's next here on Offsides.
Stream, thanks for hanging out today. Appreciate it as always. And we can inform you, and Mark, you're learning this information at the exact same time that the audience is. So we set a goal for 2023 to break our 2022 download total, which was, if memory serves me, something around 65,000. Well, I can tell you, as of today, November 13th, with still a month and a half to go, we have reached 79,000 downloads, 15,000 more than our total from 2022. And with your help, I think we can reach easily 90,000. 90,000. That's 15,000 more by the end of the year. That's a month and a half to get another 15,000. You guys can help us get there. Of course, the answer is subscribe to us on the Odyssey app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, but whichever one you use, it doesn't matter. It all funnels down to the same place. Just make sure you're click and play on our podcasts, listening to them. You know, it doesn't have to be the full length podcast. It can be the short ones too. That is super, super helpful. Share it around to other people. If we say something that you think a friend of yours would find really interesting and entertaining, share it to them, share it to everybody. That would be really, really huge. So thank you so much. A, for getting us to this point. B, for trying to get us. I think we can hit 90. We're at 79 right now. We need 11,000 more before the end of the year. I think that we'll get there. So thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you so much for all you do for us.